On a cold autumn night in suburban New York, a teenage girl walked away from work upset after an argument with her manager. She was only minutes from home. Streetlights flickered across quiet neighborhoods as cars passed by, unaware that a predator was watching from the darkness. By morning, the girl had vanished. What followed would become a nightmare involving failed investigations, questionable confessions, decades of silence, and a shocking DNA discovery that changed everything. This is the story of a murder that haunted an entire community for over 40 years. Friends described the victim as responsible, friendly, and quiet. She balanced school, friendships, and a part-time job at a local skating center where teenagers gathered every weekend beneath flashing lights and loud music. To most people, it looked like a normal American teenage life. But investigators would later believe someone had been watching her routine for weeks. On the evening she disappeared, tensions reportedly grew during her work shift. Co-workers later remembered seeing her emotional before leaving the building alone. No one imagined it would be the last time they ever saw her alive. As hours passed with no sign of the missing teenager, concern quickly turned into panic. Flyers appeared across neighborhoods. Parents warned children not to walk home alone. Rumors spread through schools and local businesses as residents realized someone dangerous might be living among them. Weeks later, the search ended in horror. Near isolated railroad tracks surrounded by overgrown brush, investigators discovered the teenager's body hidden beneath leaves and debris. The scene stunned detectives. The victim had been sexually assaulted and murdered. The quiet suburban community instantly transformed into the center of one of the region's most disturbing homicide investigations. In the mid-1980s, forensic science was limited. Investigators collected evidence, but the technology needed to fully identify a killer didn't yet exist. Pressure from the public intensified daily. Police needed arrests, and that pressure would soon lead the investigation down a dangerous path. Authorities focused on several young local men connected loosely to the victim's social circle. After long interrogations, investigators claimed multiple suspects confessed. But years later, those confessions would come under intense scrutiny. Defense attorneys argued the statements were inconsistent, pressured, and unreliable. The courtroom trials dominated local headlines. Families cried as guilty verdicts were delivered. To the public, justice appeared complete. But behind the scenes, major questions remained unanswered. The physical evidence didn't fully match the prosecution's version of events. The convicted men spent years behind bars insisting they were innocent. Meanwhile, the victim's family continued grieving a loss that never healed. And somewhere outside prison walls, the real killer allegedly remained free. By the early 2000s, DNA technology had transformed criminal investigations worldwide. Old evidence from the case was tested again using modern forensic methods. The results shocked investigators. The imprisoned suspects were excluded entirely. After years behind bars, the convictions collapsed. The murder investigation was reopened from the beginning. Detectives revisited witness statements, timelines, and forgotten evidence buried in storage for decades. Then forensic genealogy created a possible lead. A man living quietly in the same region suddenly became the focus of investigators. Undercover surveillance teams followed the suspect for days. Then investigators recovered a discarded drink container from public trash. Inside it was DNA. When the laboratory results returned, detectives believed they finally had the answer the community had waited decades to hear. More than 40 years after the murder, authorities arrested the suspect. For the victim's family, the moment brought complicated emotions: relief, anger, exhaustion, and the painful realization that justice delayed can never fully erase decades of suffering. The investigation exposed serious concerns about interrogation tactics, wrongful convictions, and investigative pressure. Innocent lives had been permanently damaged. Families on every side carried emotional scars. And the case became a powerful example of both the dangers of investigative mistakes and the incredible power of modern forensic science. The teenager at the center of this case should have had an entire future ahead of her. Instead, her story became part of a decades-long search for truth. A reminder that even when time passes, evidence remembers. And sometimes, justice waits quietly for decades before finally revealing itself. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to Deadly Secrets for more true crime stories where technology, obsession, and reality collide.